Today's masterclass is all about how you can develop and maintain peace and power in the three brains. There's the central nervous system, the intrinsic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. And beyond that, you've got the three of them working together or not. And they're either harmonizing or combating one another, but regardless of what they are doing, it's what's happening within you. So you're essentially doing it to yourself. The value in that is that you can actually empower yourselves and all the environment within your inner world. The head brain, as we call it, is what we call, like I said, the central nervous system, and it's the thinking brain. It's the brain that thinks for us. It analyzes, it is our intelligence, essentially, or in some cases, lack thereof, the home of the central nervous system, which runs through the spinal cord. And if you've taken any of my master classes or you follow any of my other work, you'll have heard me say this many times. The brain is made of neurons. Neurons are brain nerves. Every neuron has a charge, and when we have a thought, essentially it's a neuron, it fires up and either new neurons spawn off of that thought, so you give birth to new neurons, or current neurons start to fire up with it that act within cohesion of that same neuron. So they carry a similar charge, so they will fire up with it. So as these neurons are firing up, they're becoming neural nets, and those neural nets become thought waves. And those thought waves, the more that there are per minute or per second, those become a wave pattern. And that wave pattern is known as a frequency. Now, when a frequency emits out into the outer world, something happens, and it's a very special and very real and very scientific process. But we're going to talk about first what happens with those neurons when they fire up and create neural nets and send signals. Those charges of those neurons, they convert to signals as they travel through the central nervous system, through the spine. And as they go through the spinal cord, they are sending out signals to the environment in our body. And as those signals are going out to our body, they're messaging different glands to stimulate production of hormones and strengthen tissue or weaken tissue, or tell our organs to freeze up or slow down or stop circulating as much blood so it can give more blood to the outer extremities. For instance, in the case of anxiety or panic, that's what happens. We actually send signals into our organs to stifle them and slow them down so that some of that blood can be used for the outer extremities so that we can protect ourselves, because our brain is trying to protect us when it thinks that we have to panic, that we're in danger. You can break down your immunity and become more prone to disorder, disease, or death because of what's happening inside your body. So the head thinks, the heart feels. There were these neurons actually on the heart, and they were actually emitting a frequency. They were actually signaling the head brain, and they feel in response to something. So when something's not really good for you and you start to cry or feel like scared, it's different than fear that you have to step past to break a barrier. But when you have that intrepidation where you know something's not good for you, that's your heart telling you, hey, we shouldn't do this right now. The frequencies that are emitted by the heart neurons, I told you earlier, they're actually more intense than the head brain's frequencies, but there's less neurons, but more intense neural activity from the heart, and the heart is actually doing more to communicate with the head brain than the head brain is communicating with the heart. And the gut actually guides. It is our guidance. It's our guidance tool. Now, the gut brain is interesting because what the gut brain does is it provides us with the channel that actually influences this channel. So the brain and the head brain and the heart brain are actually very heavily affected by what's called the enteric nervous system, which is basically, it's the peripherals of the intestines. They're being affected by the way that we eat or don't eat, and how active we are, and how well we're hydrated. So it's really important to discover new ways to keep your gut really, really healthy, because essentially it becomes your seeing eyeglass between the heart brain and the head brain. It impacts it dramatically. And the gut brain, when it's not healthy, is directly associated with producing anxiety issues, stress disorders, depression, something definitely we're looking more into. The number one solution I have for the gut brain is to understand that the gut brain actually, it stimulates a sense of peace and safety and euphoria in the body and the head-heart connection. But then on top of it, if you are eating probiotics, you're actually taking in things that are going to essentially culture your body with a tone of peace and fluidity, and it's just flowing. There's the central nervous system, the intrinsic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. And beyond that, you've got the three of them working together or not. And they're either harmonizing or combating one another, but regardless of what they are doing, it's what's happening within you. So you're essentially doing it to yourself. The value in that is that you can actually empower yourselves and all the environment within your inner world.